My girlfriend and I, well, we get paid to be tortured. Sounds insane, I know, but it's our job. The last time she went in, though, something went very, very wrong. And now, she's not the same. I've always had a weird thing for odd jobs. Ever since I was a teenager, I loved finding strange ways to make a quick buck. When I stumbled across Craigslist back then, it was like opening Pandora's box. One thing led to another, and suddenly I was neck-deep in gigs most people wouldn't even believe were real. You wouldn't believe half the stuff people are willing to pay for online, and most of it doesn't involve filling out a single piece of paperwork. Usually the people hiring don't want to be traceable, or they're desperate enough to skip any kind of formal process. That's actually how I met Chelsea. It's a story I used to love telling at parties, the kind of thing you'd expect to tell at your wedding, or laugh about years later with your kids. At least, that's how it would have been. We met when we were both hired for the same job, a gig at some kid's 11th birthday party. Neither of us had any clue what exactly we'd signed up for, which probably should have been a red flag. But the pay was good, really good, and that was all we needed to hear at the time. When we got there, we were met by Frank, middle-aged, salt and pepper beard, reeking of patchouli and marinara sauce. He told us we were supposed to stage a massive screaming match right in the middle of the party. Apparently, we were playing the crazy couple from down the street. Nobody told us why, just what to do. Honestly, I still have no idea why they wanted that little drama show. I almost backed out right there. I wasn't much of an actor, and the idea of putting on a show for strangers made my stomach turn. But Chelsea? She jumped straight into character like she'd been waiting for this moment her whole life. 2 hours later, we were sitting on the curb a block away from the party, laughing through the pain. She was holding a bag of frozen carrots to my swollen cheekbone while I sat there sticky with chocolate milk that had been thrown at me. It was a mess, but we couldn't stop smiling. That's when we really started talking. We swapped stories about the weirdest jobs we'd ever taken, the craziest things we'd done just to earn a few bucks. We both agreed that as long as it wasn't a felony, we were game. But we both preferred the odd, offbeat gigs, stuff that was legal, harmless, but definitely weird. Chelsea didn't even do it for the money. She lived for the rush, the stories, the chaos. I'd never met anyone like her, and that night, I think I fell in love. And it hit me fast, like getting clocked in the head with a baseball bat. There was nothing slow or subtle about it. A couple months later, we moved in together. From there, life just settled into something comfortable, something good. She'd make me coffee in the mornings, kissing my forehead as I walked into the kitchen. We took turns cooking dinner, argued over who had to do the dishes, and collapsed on the couch together to watch hours of trashy reality TV. We even started talking about the future, about a house with a yard, a dog, maybe even kids someday. Everything just felt like it was falling into place. Our friends loved us together. Our families got along. My mom started hinting, way too aggressively, that she wanted grandkids, and I had to beg her to stop asking Chelsea about her cycle. But no one knew about the other side of our life. The secret gigs. The jobs we did together when everyone else thought we were just a normal couple living a normal life. That secret? It made everything feel electric. Then one quiet Friday, we got the call. Chelsea was at her barista job, and I was at home, wiping down the kitchen counters before heading to lunch with my parents. Unknown numbers didn't scare me. With all my side jobs, they were pretty normal. But this one was different. As soon as I picked up, I heard a sterile, automated voice. This call may be recorded for quality assurance and training purposes. Please state your first and last name and your date of birth. I frowned and tossed the rag onto the counter. Julian Rains, May 14th, 1999, I said, feeling strangely formal. A short silence, then a beep, and then a man's voice, real this time, not a robot. Hello, Mr. Rains. I hear you might be looking for work. By the time Chelsea came home, I was sitting on the couch waiting like a kid with a secret. She came up behind me, cupped my face in her hands, and kissed the top of my head. Hey, babe, I said, trying and failing not to sound too excited. How was work? Exhausting, she groaned, leaning over the back of the couch and squishing the cushions. But I got this insane voicemail. The facility looked like nothing special from the outside, just a rundown warehouse in the middle of nowhere. A long, black car picked us up, the driver quiet and serious, answering questions with short one-word replies. Chelsea and I sat close, sneaking glances at each other and squeezing hands every time the silence got too heavy. When we arrived, a tall man in a perfectly pressed suit opened the car door for us. His dark hair was slicked back perfectly, not a single strand out of place. "Mr. and Mrs. Raines, I presume?" he said with a polite smile. Chelsea's eyes dropped to the ground, which surprised me. She was never the shy one. But this felt different. This felt official. We're not married," I said quickly. "Oh, my apologies," the man said quickly, tapping his forehead with his palm like he'd just remembered something obvious. "I'm so sorry, Miss Sutherland," Chelsea replied softly. "Miss Sutherland. Of course." He reached out to shake her hand first, then mine, his grip firm but friendly. "My name is Malcolm Kessler. Most folks just call me Kessler. Now, would you like to know why you're here?" Chelsea and I exchanged a glance and nodded, letting Kessler guide us deeper into the building. From the outside, the place had looked abandoned, but inside, it was a whole different world. Bright white hallways stretched in every direction, lined with people in crisp white lab coats, carrying clipboards and coffee cups as they moved with purpose. "Is this like a hospital?" Chelsea asked, her voice full of awe as she took it all in. I reached for her hand again, and she gave mine a quick, tight squeeze. Kessler chuckled softly. "Not quite. We do have medical professionals here, and yes, we use some of the same tools you'd find in a hospital. But no, this isn't a hospital." He flashed us a grin that felt just a little too sly to be comforting. He led us into a plain metal room. One table, 4 chairs, nothing on the walls. Moments later, a woman with her hair in a severe bun entered, dropped a thick stack of papers onto the table, and left without a word. Kessler gestured for us to sit down. "This," he said slowly, looking from me to Chelsea, "is OEM. Do you know what that stands for?" We both shook our heads. "This is the Office of Enhanced Methods." I blinked at him, the fluorescent light overhead buzzing faintly and making my eyes sting. "Enhanced methods of what exactly?" "I'm glad you asked." Kessler leaned back in his chair, lacing his fingers casually in his lap. "Essentially, OEM studies and tests torture methods. We find out what works, what doesn't, what needs tweaking or scaling back. You know, that sort of thing." Chelsea turned to me immediately, her brows furrowed, her lips pressed together. I met her eyes, trying to read what she was thinking. "This is a government thing?" she asked carefully, not looking away from me. Kessler let out a low laugh. "You could say that. So why us?" I asked finally, turning back toward him. I already had a guess, but I needed to hear it said out loud. Kessler leaned forward now, resting his elbows on the table. Up close, his face was sharp and serious, but his expression was almost comforting, as if he'd practiced looking approachable in a mirror. "To be honest," he said in a softer tone, "we need volunteers. But, as you can imagine, it's hard to find people willing to sign up for something like this. So now, we reach out to folks like you. People who seek out strange, unusual jobs. And we're prepared to compensate you very, very well." I searched his face for any sign that he was joking, exaggerating, lying, but I saw none. Chelsea glanced toward the paperwork, her teeth worrying at her lip. "How much compensation are we talking?" I finally asked. I expected him to laugh it off, but instead, Kessler's tone grew even more serious. "Are you two planning to get married?" I felt heat rush to my face. The ring was already bought, sitting hidden away in my sock drawer for over a month. I'd just been waiting for the right moment to ask. "Yes. I mean, eventually," I admitted. Kessler nodded knowingly. "You've seen how much weddings cost these days, haven't you?" he asked, raising his eyebrows. "And the honeymoon. And kids someday. And then there's college, retirement. Life gets expensive." Before I knew it, he reached across the table, taking my hand in one of his and Chelsea's in the other. The gesture felt intimate, almost too intimate, like he was pulling the air out of the room with him. "I'll be straight with you," he said gently. "The world out there is rough right now, but I can make it so you two never have to worry about money again." He stood, excusing himself and leaving us alone with the stack of paperwork. I could have sworn I heard the door lock behind him, though maybe that was just my nerves. Chelsea and I sat in silence for a long moment. "This is a lot," she muttered finally, running her hands through her hair. "This whole place is crazy." I reached out and flipped through the papers. Words like non-disclosure agreement, liability waiver, medical coverage stared back at me. I set them down and took her hand again. "It's a ton of money," I said quietly, and he seemed dead serious. "Would this make us I don't know, we're criminals? She asked with a weak laugh. I could see the tension in her shoulders. I shrugged, smiling gently as I reached out to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear. She smiled back, but it was small, nervous. Neither of us said what we were really thinking. If they were offering that much money, just how bad was the job? Still, I could feel the buzz between us, the same adrenaline we always got when something strange was about to happen. Chelsea thrived on moments like this. And deep down, I knew the second we stepped into this place that she'd want to say yes. When Kessler returned, I stood quickly, wiping my sweaty palms on my jeans. So, I asked, what kind of torture are we talking about? His grin spread wide. Let me show you. He led us down another hallway, explaining as we went. The new room looked almost identical to the first: metal table, chairs, except for the cameras on every wall, and the strange chair with wrist and ankle restraints bolted to it. I swallowed hard when I saw it. Everything that happens here stays here, Kessler said, motioning for us to sit. Not just communication-wise, physically too. Nothing we do will leave permanent damage, and medical staff are always nearby. As if on cue, a man in a lab coat entered, pushing a metal cart. He began strapping our wrists to the chairs, leaving our legs free. This is entirely voluntary, Kessler continued. Nothing will happen without your consent. Some details we might keep from you, but that's just so we get an authentic reaction. You can walk away anytime. The man in the coat pulled on a pair of gloves with a snap that made my stomach knot. What's he going to do? I asked. Kessler nodded at the man, who carefully drew a clear liquid into a syringe from a small glass vial. This, he said, is just a sample. Something we've been perfecting for quite some time, and it already has a very high success rate. High success rate at what exactly? I wondered. Causing pain? Making people scream? Normally, we'd hook you up to sensors to monitor brain activity, but we'll keep it simple for today. The man approached Chelsea first. She shifted nervously in her chair as he swabbed her arm and searched for a vein. I met her eyes and tried to give a reassuring look. This is, well, think of it like liquid electrocution, Kessler said casually. Before either of us could react, the needle was in Chelsea's arm. Her eyes went wide, her body going rigid as her mouth dropped open. Then the spasms started, violent, uncontrolled. She screamed, a horrible, gurgling sound that made my heart leap into my throat. I was so focused on her that I barely noticed when another needle slid into my own arm. And then my whole body lit up in white-hot fire. We didn't go back there for months. Kessler told us to take our time, to think about it. Then he handed us a thick stack of cash, and I swear the weight of that money in my pocket almost made the pain feel worth it. Kessler hadn't lied. The pain didn't last. It felt like it had burned through me for an hour, but they swore it had been only a few minutes before the injection wore off. I had braced myself to be weak, maybe even humiliated, walking out of that building, half expecting Chelsea to handle it better than I had. But the strange thing was, I didn't feel weak at all. If anything, I felt sharper, more alive. They sat us down for a quick debrief, some young guy scribbling down notes like a court stenographer while we described what we'd felt. And then, just like that, we were free to go. The moment we stepped outside, Chelsea turned to me, eyes bright. What a rush, she said, breathless. Still, we stayed away for a while. It felt like stepping into the next level of our weird little hobby. Something darker, something that bordered on depraved. Dystopian. Strange. Terrifying. Even after the pain had faded, I could still feel it in my memory, the way it had burned through my veins. How for a split second I was sure I was dying. And that was just a sample. But eventually we went back. Neither of us could stay away. And honestly, the money was too good to ignore, way too good. At first, we didn't even tell each other. Chelsea would head out to her barista job, and I'd drive to the warehouse. They'd inject me, make me choke down pills that turned my stomach inside out, strap me to chairs, sometimes even rough me up until I could barely stand. And then I'd drive home, still shaking, still sore. Chelsea started acting different too, staying up after I went to bed, coming home later, looking pale. I couldn't call her out on it, because I was doing the same thing. It was like we had an unspoken agreement not to put pressure on each other. And honestly, neither of us liked the idea of watching the other one get tortured. It all clicked for me the night I caught her sneaking in around 3 in the morning, rubbing her temples like she had the world's worst migraine. I was sitting on the couch, reading, waiting for her. She froze when she saw me, her eyes wide. I couldn't help it. I laughed. Cheating on me? I teased. Not exactly, she said with a smirk, dropping down on the couch beside me. I pulled her close, and she rested her head on my shoulder, letting out a tired sigh. Let's just do it together, okay? I murmured. No more sneaking around. We go together from now on. She didn't answer right away. A minute later, I realized why. She was asleep, snoring softly against me. The next weekend, we went back, together this time. Kessler greeted us like an old friend, clapping both of us on the back. Great to see you two together again, he said brightly. The work you've been doing here has been excellent. Chelsea shot me a grin and playfully punched me in the arm. I grinned back, relieved to have the secret finally out. I've got something new for you today, Kessler said, almost cheerfully. Something special, now that you're here as a pair. If you're willing to try it. My smile faltered. Different how? I asked warily. He just waved a hand and led us to another room. The same metal chairs were waiting, with their straps and cuffs. This time, there was a doctor already inside, fiddling with some kind of device that looked like a headband. We'd like to try something more psychological, Kessler said lightly. I stopped dead. Psychological. Kessler and Chelsea both turned toward me, eyebrows raised in unison. Psychological torture? I asked, my mind flashing through every horror movie I'd ever seen. Physical pain I could handle, but your sanity? Once that breaks, you don't get it back. Kessler stepped closer, putting his hands on my shoulders, speaking softly like a father convincing his son to jump in the pool for the first time. Think about it, Mr. Rains, he said. It's just a short test. 30 seconds, tops. Nothing leaves this facility, and we'll have professionals check on you immediately after. 30 seconds for enough cash to buy a used car. My stomach twisted. If it wasn't dangerous, why were they offering that much money? Why did it feel like the stakes were higher than ever? Come on, Jules. Chelsea's smile broke through my panic. She looked calm, fearless even, and it eased me just enough. We'll do it together. I nodded, though it felt like my head weighed 100 pounds. The doctor was on me instantly, slipping the band over my head. 2 cold metal plates pressed against my forehead, and every muscle in my body tensed. Chelsea sat beside me, and the doctor placed hers too. She crossed her eyes at me, trying to make me laugh. I smirked back, but my chest felt tight. Ready? Kessler asked. Then he nodded at the doctor, who tapped a key on the panel. And Chelsea started screaming. Not just screaming, screaming. I had never heard a sound like that in my life. Not from a person. Not even in movies. It was raw, primal, a noise so loud and sharp it felt like it was tearing through my eardrums. It was the sound of something breaking. It was beyond pain, beyond torture. It was like her soul itself was being ripped apart. I thought of hell, of damnation, of lost souls being dragged into the fire. And I wasn't even religious. Her hand clamped around mine with a strength that made my bones creak. Chelsea, Chelsea. I tore myself out of the chair, shaking her, trying to pry her fingers free. She wouldn't let go. Couldn't. Her eyes were open, wide and glassy, but she wasn't seeing me. Tears streamed from them, rivers of them. Her face twisted in agony. Jesus Christ. I yelled, spinning around. The doctor was typing frantically, Kessler frozen with his hands half raised, his eyes darting back and forth. Do something. I screamed. Fucking do something. Chelsea's scream turned into a ragged, choking gasp that filled the room. It was all I could hear, her desperate throat pulling for air, spit dripping from her mouth, her chest heaving. I ripped the headband off her myself. She went completely still, her grip finally loosening. For a moment, the room was silent. Then Kessler muttered something under his breath, and the doctor bolted out of the room. Chelsea? Baby? I dropped to my knees in front of her, rubbing her knee, terrified she wasn't breathing. She wouldn't look at me, wouldn't move. Please, I begged, just say something. Just as I was about to check her pulse, her head turned slowly toward me. Her eyes, those eyes I knew better than anyone's, were wrong. Dead. She opened her mouth and a horrible, raspy sound came out, like she'd forgotten how to form words. I leaned closer, trying to smile through the panic. What is it, honey? Please, she whispered. No more. My chest felt like it was burning. I cupped her wet face with my shaking hands. It's over, baby. No more. It's done. She stared right through me. She wasn't really there anymore. Then, barely moving her lips, she whispered one last thing. Just kill me. I looked back at Kessler. He seemed just as stunned as I was, fussing with his tie like he needed something to do with his hands. Our eyes met for a long second, and I could see it plain as day. Something had gone terribly, impossibly wrong, and he had no idea how to fix it. The hours that followed came in shattered pieces. Doctors rushed in, wheeled Chelsea away while I begged to go with her, begged to know where they were taking her. They left me in that freezing, sterile room with her scream still bouncing off the walls inside my skull. I cried. I pleaded into the dark eye of the camera in the corner. I even slammed my head against the table. Someone eventually came in to wrap my broken hand, but nobody said a word about Chelsea. It felt like I was trapped there for days. Maybe I was. When the door finally opened and Kessler walked back in, I didn't feel relief, just a deep, hollow break inside me. "Where is she?" I croaked, lifting my head. "Is she okay?" He didn't answer right away. He just sat opposite me, the panic I'd seen on his face earlier wiped clean, replaced by something professional and stiff. Still, he looked a shade paler. He pulled an envelope from his jacket and set it on the metal table. "Miss Sutherland is right outside. She's unharmed and feeling fine." I let out a sob I couldn't hold back and hid my face in my hands. He cleared his throat and kept going. "You're to take this envelope. Inside is a check for $700,000. A driver will take you to the emergency room so your hand can be properly treated. Any additional medical costs will be fully covered by us. After that, you go home and never return here. Do you understand?" I stared up at him and nodded. I wanted to rage, to demand answers, to threaten them with a lawsuit, but I was too worn down to lift that weight. I just wanted to see Chelsea. I just wanted to leave. Kessler pressed his lips into a thin line and gave a small nod. "We at OEM are deeply ashamed of what occurred today. Please accept our sincerest condolences." Something about that phrasing scraped across my skin, condolences, like a cold fingernail. But my brain was numb. I shoved the envelope into my pocket and nodded again. Chelsea was waiting just outside, like he'd said. When she saw me, she smiled. I pulled her into me and held on, breathing her in, kissing the side of her neck. "Thank God you're okay. Hey, don't cry." She kissed my cheek and brushed away the tears. "I'm more than okay, baby." What a rush. A laugh burst out of me like a cough I couldn't swallow. "You're a psychopath." "You like it?" she shot back, still grinning. They took us to the hospital as promised. X-rays, a cast, 3 breaks in my hand. While the techs moved around us, a slow dread crept up my spine. Every time I looked at Chelsea, she just smiled like nothing had happened. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay on my back, staring at the ceiling while white spots drifted at the edges of my vision. My hand throbbed against my chest. The press of Chelsea's back against my arm was the only thing keeping me anchored. I turned toward the back of her head and chewed my lip. After that blinding, fluorescent room, our bedroom felt too quiet, too dark. Restlessness crawled across my skin. "Chelsea," I whispered. "You awake?" No response. She wasn't snoring, but I swore I could hear her heartbeat. Ka-thunk, ka-thunk, ka-thunk. I sighed. "What did you feel when it was happening?" I knew she wouldn't answer, but I needed to say something to someone, even if it was just to the dark. Ka-thunk, ka-thunk. Her back moved with each breath, and the sound quickened. Only then did it hit me. Why could I hear it at all, and so loud? I pushed up on my elbows and brushed her hair. "Hey, baby, you okay?" "Nothing." Ka-thunk, ka-thunk, ka-thunk. Then that old childhood fear slid over me. The one where you're sure there's someone in the closet or just outside the door. Panic sprinted through my chest. I needed to see her face. I had to be certain she was alive, that she was herself, that she was real. I took her arm and rolled her toward me. Her eyes were open, wide, bloodshot, and my heart jumped into my throat when I realized it wasn't a heartbeat I'd been hearing. It was the sound of her gasping, her throat opening and closing, dry and rapid, like an animal about to vomit. Ka-thunk, ka-thunk, ka-thunk. I shook her hard, jerking upright. She gasped and blinked at me, sleepy and confused, rubbing her eyes. "Julian?" Her voice was raspy and dry, but otherwise normal. I snapped on the lamp, breathing like I'd run a mile. "Babe, what's wrong?" I shook my head. Couldn't look at her. Couldn't breathe. She wrapped her arms around me, shushing me, stroking my hair. You were. Chill. It's okay. It's okay now, Jules. I'm okay. Just a bad dream." But it wasn't a dream. I knew that like I knew my own name. After that, My girlfriend was different. She wasn't herself. I tried to pretend we were fine. She did too. She went to work, saw her friends, curled up with me on the couch for TV. But it felt like she wasn't fully in the room anymore. She barely slept, and when she did, it was fractured and wrong. More than once I caught her asleep with her eyes wide open, just like that first night. I asked her once what her dreams were like. She hesitated, then said, "You know how really fresh meat still twitches? How the muscles keep moving even though the animal's dead?" She ruffled my hair and smiled. That's what the backs of my eyelids look like. The worst part was how normal she tried to act. The way she insisted she felt fine, the way she kissed me and joked like always, but the timing was off. The warmth wasn't there. I hit my limit about a month later, coming home after a drink with friends. The house was pitch black and dead quiet. The second I stepped inside, it hit me, that nameless terror. Like there was a stranger hiding in the closet. Everything felt wrong. I knew the furniture hadn't moved, but the room felt misaligned. "Chelsea?" I called softly, shrugging off my rain-soaked jacket. "You awake, honey?" Silence. I started toward the stairs, then saw her. Down the hallway, half her face poking around the corner, only her eyes visible in the dark, staring wide. Looking at me, but not seeing me. She started screaming. And because I couldn't see her mouth, it was somehow even worse. The sound came in choppy bursts, like a panting dog, but razor-sharp and blood-curdling. My body chose for me, flight. I stepped back out the front door and closed it gently behind me. I didn't look back until I'd crossed the street. She was in our bedroom window now, lights blazing behind her silhouette. I watched her rear back and smash her head into the glass. Once, twice, again, something dark trickling down to the frame. The paramedics had to strap her down so she wouldn't thrash or hurt herself. I stood on the sidewalk and watched them load her in, and I begged them, actually begged them, to kill her. I tried calling OEM, but the number was dead. I drove to the warehouse while she was still at the hospital, and all that remained was an empty shell. When I picked her up, she was perfectly normal again, if normal means calm and smiling, with fresh stitches across her forehead as the only evidence. That was the day I broke. That was the day the helplessness swallowed me whole, and that's when I started hearing her voice. "Honey?" I glanced at my girlfriend, or whatever version of her sat in my passenger seat. She stared out the window, smiling peacefully. "What was that?" I asked. She looked over, smile widening. "Nothing, Julian." I didn't say anything. I turned back to the road and told myself I was losing it. That would make sense. That would be easier. Then I heard it again. "Julian, open your eyes. Honey, it's okay. Jesus Christ. Kessler, take that thing off him. He's had enough." It's been weeks since then. We're home. We're safe. At least, that's what Chelsea keeps telling me. I'm trying to believe her. I know it's in my head. I know it's just whatever that device did to me. But when it happens, it feels real. I'm terrified I'll wake up back in that room someday. And if I do, I don't think I'll bounce back this time.